Are we good? We are on. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trailhead DX. Yes, the slide is up. We are good to go. Is everybody awake yet? Yeah? Does everybody get breakfast in the back? You should do that after the talk, but you should definitely go grab breakfast. Well, hopefully you're all in the right place and expecting to hear an amazing talk on Einstein Platform Services. I'm going to give you an overview, and we're going to see it in action. It's going to be a jam-packed 20 minutes, and I'm super excited to spend it with you. My name is Heather Dykstra. I'm a developer evangelist at Salesforce. I've been here for about 8 months now, and artificial intelligence is one of my favorite things, so I'm super, super stoked to be bringing it to all of you today. But before we do the really cool stuff, I have the very distinct pleasure of being the first person of the Trailhead DX conference to tell you to only make your purchasing decisions based on what's currently available in our product, and not any forward-looking statements I may make or you may hear throughout the conference this week. So, thanks. All right, so let's dive right on in with a quick question. How many of you think you know what you see on this picture? You could identify this, right? Maybe. All right. I see a banana. Yeah? Does everybody see a banana? Maybe a bowl? Cool. Well, what about on this picture? Who thinks they can tell me how many bananas are in this photo in the next 3 seconds? No one, right? That's a huge ask. Okay, so let's talk about words then. Everybody here can read this statement, right? Can I get a new credit card? That seems pretty basic. All right. But what about these statements? There's a lot here. How many of you think you can tell me how many of these statements are asking a billing question? Right. That's a lot. So what we're going to cover today is how we can make Einstein do that for us. How we can make sure that we're really getting the best results and that it's faster than what a human could do. So the key takeaway of this session is that Einstein Platform is going to enable you to automate all of your vision and language processes at scale. So there are two main parts to our Einstein Platform services. There are vision services, and there are language services. And we're going to demo and talk about all the details of both of those today. For vision, we have two specific services. We have image classification, which tells us what's in that image. So for our very first photo of our banana, that would tell me, hey, this photo has a banana in it. And for our second photo, with all of the different things in it, that's when object detection really kicks in. And we can say, hey, there were, 15 bananas on that slide. And maybe all of those pictures had bowls. For our language services, we have two also, very convenient. We have intent, which tells you, hey, I think that this is what someone's aiming for. So with that credit card statement, I can say that the intent behind that statement is maybe a billing issue or needing a new credit card for the future. With our sentiment services, however, I can tell how you're feeling. So that can I get a new credit card, that feels pretty neutral, maybe to me. But our computer can be more powerful in that and say, hey, if they used all capitalization, maybe they're kind of angry or upset. So perhaps we should look more into that. So let's go back to that first exercise and look at our lovely picture. We all think that this has a banana in it, so that's an easy classification. But we also can see that this has a bowl in the photo. then get really complicated and we start thinking about it, and we're like, oh, well, maybe this is a bowl with fruit. Well, that's a whole other thing. So that's how we start to classify things with labels. So I'm going to tell you quite a few different words to define them for you so that you understand how we talk about artificial intelligence. And that first one is, how do you label something? So in this case, we've labeled things with a specific category or a specific title. So once you've got all of your examples collected, you can label them all. And in this case, we might label all of these as fruits or bowls with fruits. And so that's our label that we're going to do more work with. So we had all of those photos. We had all of those sentences. What do we call that whole group of data? We actually call that group of data a data set within Einstein Platform Services. So as you're messing around in our documentation, you're reading more, when I say data set, they mean all of those photos with all of those labels. And oftentimes you'll see it represented a lot like this, because a data set can contain multiple labels. Just because I said that all of those pictures had bowls with fruit, that doesn't mean that I can't classify the one that specifically has strawberries also as a bowl with strawberries in it. So why is this important to understand, that you can have multiple labels within your data set? Because once you've got all of your data set together with all of your labels, then you can start to build a model. And your model represents the training state of your data at a specific given time. So once you've uploaded your whole data set with all of your labels into Einstein Platform Services, then you have to train that data. You have to tell that data what it actually means to the computer. And so when you're in the process of training, you call that a model. This model contains a specific ID that we're going to use throughout all your API calls. So you have to make sure that you remember that model ID. I actually have mine all copy-pasted and saved in a file, so that whenever I'm specifically referencing a model of my bowls with fruit, that I know I'm referencing the right one. So the last term that we're going to cover today is prediction. And I think this is the most important term because it's probably what you're all here for, right? Einstein predicts things. That's what you want it to do. So our prediction, actually, what it'll do is when you give it something new, something it hasn't seen before, it'll return a probability and a label to you of what it thinks your thing is. So if I were to take a new picture of a different bowl with fruit and feed it into my model that I've trained on that bowl with fruit, it should theoretically still tell me it's a bowl with fruit. But it'll even tell me how certain it is that that's what we see. So this is a lot of theory and a lot of words and a lot of slides. And I think that's kind of boring. So let's jump into a demo and actually see how this stuff works. Let's see if we can slide over. Brilliant. So what I have here is what we call a playground. I've actually created it using a GitHub repository that a colleague of mine wrote. And it already has all of the different API services pre-configured for me to go ahead and use to demo to you today. But you can also just go download it yourself and get started right after this session. So let's kind of go through what this app looks like. It's just a simple app in my app launcher right here, which will load up our page. And you can see this introduction is if you just got started with this org, maybe you need to actually get it set up. So you'll have to make sure you get an Einstein email account all set up and also get your Einstein permission set. This is all background things, but it takes about 2 minutes. I did it myself this morning when I spun up this org. It also gives you some basics on how to do this. There's a video here that shows you a very similar demo to the demo we're going to go through today. And then there's some links to resources like our documentation. So this is kind of a one-stop shop for everything you need to know to get started with Einstein. So let's actually see it happen. If we click on this image classification tab, you can see that there are a couple of different tabs down here. The first one is our data sets and models. So just like we were talking about, we have a data set, which is a bunch of photos in this case because we're in an image service. And we've actually labeled our data set as mountains and beaches. So you can see here I have 50 examples of mountain photos and 49 examples of beach photos. Now, this is really, really small, so there's a good chance that my predictions aren't going to be very good. So when you use this at scale at your company, I would recommend way, way, way more than 50 examples for each label that you're trying to predict. So if we go ahead and we look at our models, you can actually see that I've trained this model twice, and I've got 2 different model IDs here. Both are 100% successful, but let's say I wanted to make sure that they were good to go. I could click this refresh model button and get a whole third one going. I'm not going to do that right now. I am going to go back to the label tab and show you a few more buttons on here that are pretty important. The first one is that we can retrain this data set. That's super important if you're writing code that continues to learn. So if you're using the APIs and you're not just in this interface, this retrain function on the back end is going to be what you want to use to make sure that Einstein is always learning. So when you have another photo of a mountain that gets submitted, you want to be able to retrain and know that, hey, now I can include that in my data set. We also have a basic train button that's really useful for the first time that you ever see a data set. And we could also delete it. Pretty easy. These are all API calls, and so that's why we display them here in the button form so that you can go and learn how to use them on the back end. So let's go ahead and let's do a quick prediction. I'm going to upload a quick file that I have of Cody and Cloudy dancing. You'll notice that they are dancing on this weird psychedelic floor, but there are some mountains in the background. And I'm training it against my pre-built model. So this is a really basic pre-built general image classifier. And you can see it thinks this is maybe a jigsaw puzzle, which makes sense. It doesn't look too different from a jigsaw puzzle. Or maybe a pinwheel. And you can see that the percentages are really low. And that's because it really has no idea what this photo is. My data set didn't have it in it. But if I instead put this against my mountains versus beach model, you can see that it's 85% sure that there are mountains in that photo. That's pretty great. So it's really important as you continue to work through all of creating your data sets that you account for things that maybe you're not looking for. Because if I were to now upload a photo of, say, a banana, it's probably not going to know what this is. And look, it classified it as a beach. It's kind of awkward. That's clearly a banana, but I guess it's the same color as a beach, so maybe it makes some sense. So just keep that in mind as you're using Einstein, that it is smart, but it's only as smart as you've told it to be. Okay, so let's look at the next one. I've also got some image classification multi. That's a new API that we don't fully have fleshed out yet, so I'm going to skip that tab for now and go on to object detection. I've got a data set here that can detect how many things are in a photo, and it's specifically trained to look at boxes of cereal. So let's go ahead and run a quick prediction on that. Alpine. Here we go. I've got 3 boxes of cereal here. They're a very specific brand, so if I were to take another photo of another cereal, this would probably not work. But if we wait just a minute here, this one takes a little bit longer because it's running on so many things. But now you can see it can identify that this is an oat cereal and this is a cornflake cereal. So it was able to look at the image and tell me what is actually there, which is pretty sweet. So let's quickly look at 2 other things. Let's look at our sentiment and our intent. Now, in the case of sentiment and intent, I don't actually have any custom models written myself. And that's because our pre-built community model is pretty good. So if I were to say, I am having a wonderful time at TDX, and I were to hit send, it thinks that that's 81% positive. Now, I'm not really sure where it's getting that 19% negative from. It is trained, though, to know that maybe this is being sarcastic, or we're just not positive, 100% positive that it is positive. So it's good to keep in mind. But we could probably easily route this to somebody if this was a service question who is good at dealing with happy people. But if I were to change that and make it negative, like, I am mad. I don't know why I would be mad, but let's say I am. Now it says I'm 72% negative, and now we can reroute that to a customer service agent who can better deal with that sort of circumstance. OK, our last one is intent. And this is kind of my favorite one because it's what I think is the most powerful. We have some examples here of different statements that we've uploaded already around order change, whether or not something is a sales opportunity, if there's billing questions, shipping questions, or if somebody needs some password help. And you can see that we've got a lot more examples for sales opportunity than we do perhaps password help, but you'll see that it actually still works pretty well. So if we go to prediction and we say, I need to reset my password, we can send that to our request model, and it's 91% sure that that means password help. Now, we use the same words, I and need, in any request. So that's why we're getting all of those other things popping up as, oh, maybe you need that too. If we click on the raw here, we can also see that this is what's actually returning from the API. This is our JSON file that tells us exactly what the label and the probability is. And so we've just formatted it really pretty in our Formatted tab. But if you wanted to dig in and really mess with the JSON, you can just look at the raw file here. OK, so I've only got 3 minutes left on the clock, but I do want to dive really quickly into what the code looks like, just to show you that this isn't too difficult. So let's go ahead, and I've already got it open. I'm here in Visual Studio Code. I've got all of the Salesforce DX plugins installed, which is why everything is all pretty. And I happen to like a light background, so sorry, I'm not a typical developer. So I've got 2 files open here. I've got the Einstein prediction service file, and this is, again, something that we're providing to you. So you can go ahead and look at it yourself and adapt it for whatever you may need. But you can see here, it's got some pretty basic methods. We've got our token. We're making sure that we're resolving our base URL. And so we handle all of this for you, and we even handle making sure that our dataset creation is asynchronous. So you don't have to worry about any of the long wait times because it's going to be happening in the background. And you can see here there's a lot that's going on. But like I said, we give it to you, and each of these methods are not very long. Now, the second class that I want to show you is our image classification class. And I want to show you this because it really, really is that simple. That's it. 44 lines to do all of our image classification. So we're just running the classification with 1 line here, and we're making sure that our results are what we expected. We've also got some parameters down here to make sure that we're calling the right invocable methods and invocable variables, but it really is that simple. So with that, that's our code. That's our playground. We've done the demo. So if my slides come back. Good. So the next step that I want to have everyone here do is go check out Trailhead, the fun way to learn Salesforce, and get started and become an AI trailblazer. We've got this custom trail mix that's got a bunch of different things on it. There's a project to build a cat rescue app. There's just how to get quickly started. And it even talks about some of our other services, not just the API services, but our services like Prediction Builder. So I definitely recommend you go check this out. So thank you guys very much. I've got a minute left if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, I'll be waiting on the side of the stage. Thank you.